Hello and welcome back to another AP3 video, and in today's video we're going to be going over SAT math problems, algebra questions. And in today's video we're going to be using Desmos to figure out why it works with Desmos and how can we use it with and without Desmos. I use Desmos because there's a lot of easy questions that if you plug in with Desmos you can solve it right away, but if you don't know the concept, how you're going to understand it with Desmos? You see what I'm trying to say? You want to know the concept when finding a question before you use Desmos, because if you use Desmos, you'll get the question right. But if there's a different question that uses the same concept, you won't get it correct. And this problem is not a Desmos question, but the ones that we're going to do later on in this video, they will be. So in this question, they ask the following. In the given system of equations, t is a constant. If the equation has no solution, what is the value t? So what does no solution mean? It just basically equals where the coefficients on the left and the right side cancel out, so there's no coefficients and there's just numbers. So for example, let's say I have x equals x plus 1. So if I do subtract x on both sides, x cancel out, some that were 0 equals 1. This is an example of no solution. There's no value we're looking for. And that's exactly what we want. We want both the x and the y values to cancel out. So we're left with like 2, we're left with 6, 12, whatever number that doesn't have an x or a y value. So let's rewrite what we're given. We're given 4x minus 6, y equals 10y plus 2. And let's move all the x and y values on the left side. So we subtract 10y on both sides. And then we're left with 4x minus 16y, which equals 2. And then for the other equation, we have ty, which is the value we're looking for, t, equals 1/2 plus 2x. So we want to move the x on the left side. So subtract x, 2x on both sides. We get negative 2x plus, I'm going to make t yellow so you don't get confused with the addition and the t signal. T y equals 1/2. So the equations that we have now, once we subtract and added, is on this side over here. Let's take it out now. Now I'm going to erase the other side. So you might be asking, well, what can we do in order to figure out the t value? Well, what I like to do is think about like 2 and 1/2, just erase them. But why? Because they don't matter. Because if I have, let's say, for example, I have 20 and 1,000. If the x and y values cancel out, it's still going to be no solution. So regardless of what values on the right side, like 10, 1, 100, even 100,000, doesn't matter. All we are focused on is for the x and y values to cancel out. So let me rewrite that in the same color. So we will have 4x minus 16y, and we'll have negative 2x plus ty. Okay, so how can we look for t? Well, let's see what we multiply in the bottom equation in order for the x values to cancel out. So if I multiply 2, I get negative 4x, and 4x minus 4x equals 0. So this equals 0, and they cancel out. So what value of t when multiplied by 2 gives us a positive number that cancels out with negative 16? It would be 8. It would be 8 because if we write it as negative 2x plus 8y, and we multiply this whole expression by 2, we get negative 4x plus 16y. And if we get the top, the green portion, we left with 4x minus 16y. And as we can see, both y and x values cancel out. So t is a constant, and what value makes it give no solution? It's when t equals 8. Okay, this question is an example of a Desmos question. So we're going to use Desmos at the end to make sure that the answer that we choose is correct. So the question asks the following. Which point in x and y is a solution to the given system of inequalities in the x and y plane. They're basically asking you that which x and y value, when plugged into the both equations above of the both inequalities, satisfies it and makes the statement true. So let's start off with A. When it's negative 14 and 0. If I make y equals 0 and x equals negative 14, I get 0 is less or equal to negative 7. 0 is bigger than negative 7, so A is incorrect. Let's do B now. Points 0 and negative 14. So again, 0, negative 14, we plug it into the first equation, we get negative 14 is less or equal to 0 plus 7, and we're left with 7, and that satisfies the first equation. So let's do the second inequality now. So negative 14 is greater or equal to negative 2 multiplied by 0 minus 1. So negative 2 multiplied by 0 equals 0, and then minus 1, it's just minus 1 by itself, so equals negative 1. And obviously, negative 1 is greater than negative 14, so B is not the answer either. Let's do C now. Our points 0 and 14. If we plug into the first equation, we get 14 is greater or equal to 0 plus 7, and we're left off with 7. And 14 is greater than 7, so C is incorrect. Let's try D now. Our points 14 and 0. We plug into the first equation, we get 0 is less or equal to 14 plus 7, that equals 21. So the first inequality is true, and we plug it into the second inequality, we get 0 is greater or equal to negative 2 multiplied by 14 minus 1, which equals negative 28, negative 28 minus 1, which equals negative 29. So 0 is greater or equal to negative 29. And D is our answer. But let's use Desmos to make sure that it's correct. So if I make y is less or equal to x plus 7, and I make y is greater or equal to negative 2x minus 1, let's look for point 14, 0, and see if it's shaded in both the x and in the y plane. So if I look for a point right here, we can see that the x of 14, 0 does indeed make the statement true, because when we look at it when equals 14, it's right here in the graph, basically meaning that D is our answer and it follows the statement being true. Okay, before we start anything with this question, let's understand what infinitely many and 0 means when it comes to solutions. So infinitely many is basically where both sides of an equation equal the same. So for example, if x equals x, they both equal the same, so that's infinitely many. If I have 21 plus 0 equals 21, that's an example of infinitely many. And it could also be factored too. For example, let's say if I have let's say x plus, let's say 8, that equals 4x plus 32. And if you multiply the factor on the left side, you get 4x plus 32, which equals 4x plus 32, which is infinitely many because both sides equal the same. But when it's 0 solutions, it's kind of like no solutions. Like we said before, is where the x or y values cancel out, and you're left with just like a 1 or a single digit number. I mean, like a number that doesn't have an x or y value. So for example, if x plus 1, which equals x minus 26, you'll be left off with 0 equals negative 27. And because there's no x value, it's 0 solution. And if I have x squared minus 1, which then equals x squared plus 30, I get 0. I get 0 equals 31, and there's no x or y value, so it's 0 solutions. This question asks the following. How many solutions of the equation 10 multiplied by 15x minus 9, close parentheses, equals negative 15, and in parentheses 6 minus 10x have? So let's multiply what's given in the factors to make the condensed equation more spread out. So 10 multiplied by 15x equals 150x. And then negative 9 multiplied by 10 is negative 90 equals negative 15 multiplied by 6 equals negative 90. And then negative 15 multiplied by negative 10x equals positive 150x, because two negatives make a positive. And as we can see, both sides equal each other, because if I subtract 150x on both sides, the x's cancel out, so I'm left with negative 90, which equals negative 90. And if I add 90 on both sides, I'm left off, they cancel out with 0 equals 0, and both sides equal the same, so the answer is infinitely many. And this is why I went through infinitely many and drew solutions, so you guys can understand. So when you realize when two parts in an equation equal the same on left and the right, so you can assume like, hey, it's infinitely many solutions. Okay, this question might be a little bit tricky, so there's a lot of information already without even reading the whole paragraph. So let's take our time, understand every piece of information that's given, and let's go into it. The laundry service is buying detergent and fabric softeners from its supplier. The supplier will deliver no more than 300 pounds in a shipment. So it shouldn't be more than 300 pounds. It could be equal, but it shouldn't be no more. And A, B, C, and D are all no more signs of 300, so you can't really cancel anything out because they all are the same. Each container of detergent weighs 7.35 pounds. So each detergent in red, and each conditioner fabric softener weighs 6.2 pounds. The service wants to buy at least twice as many containers of detergent as containers of fabric softeners. Let D represent the number of containers of detergent, and let S represent the number of containers of fabric softener, where D and S are non-negative integers. Which of the following inequalities best represents the situation? Okay, this is a lot of information. So let's see what we're given first. We're given that D equals detergent. And we're also given that S is fabric softener. So I'm just going to write softener for it to make sense. And how many detergents, or how much does it weigh? It weighed 7.35 pounds per detergent, so D. And then for fabric softener, it weighs 6.2 per container of fabric softener. So, I don't know why I made it that color. So 6.2 pounds per softener. So we can erase C and D because they multiplied 7.35 for no reason. Because 300 should be no more. So 7.35 pounds should be added by 6.2 fabric softeners in order to figure out how many of each can be used so the weight doesn't surpass 300. So C and D are incorrect. So now we gotta figure out, what does the bottom portion mean? Well, what's highlighted in pink can give us the answer. And the service wants to buy at least twice as many containers of detergent as containers of fabric softener. So what does that mean? There should be twice as many detergents as fabric softeners. So D is greater or equal to S. And where is that answer located? At A. And remember, C and D did not work because they multiplied 7.35 by 2 for no exact reason, and they're asking us each container of detergent and fabric softener, how much can we have for each in order to not surpass 300 pounds. Now this question is an example of a Desmos question, because you can plug in both equations into Desmos, figure out the x and y value, and once you find the x value where it's solid, or it satisfies both equations, you just multiply by 5x. But before we do that, let's understand why you're able to do that with both equations the regular way, the concept way, and then plug it into Desmos. And the question shows the following. The solution to the given system of equations is x and y. What is the value of 5x? So we're given y equals 3x and 2x plus y equals 12. So let's plug in y to the second equation. So we would get 2x plus 5x equals 12. Or 3, sorry. So then we're left with 5x equals 12. Let me rewrite that because it looks pretty ugly. 3x, so then 5x equals 12. So then x equals 12 divided by 5. I don't know why it does that. Like, that line thing is really weird. So 12 divided by 5. And it's telling us what is the value of 5 when it multiplies by x. Well, x equals 12 divided by 5. So 5 multiplied by 12 divided by 5. The 5's cancel out, and we're left with 12. But let's plug that into the Desmos formula, or calculator actually. So let me refresh it. If y equals 3x and 2x plus y equals 12, we see that it intersects at one point when x equals 2.4. And we see that if we do 12 divided by 5, we do 2, which equals 10, and we're left with 2, and then multiply that by 0.4. 0.4 times 5 equals 2, and it equals 0. So 12 divided by 5 equals 2.4. And if you multiply that by 5, because that is the x value, so x multiplied by 5, that just equals 12. Again. And this is why we use Desmos, because we understand that, okay, 2.4 is the x value. And if we multiply that by 5, which is what they're asking for, it equals 12. And this is why Desmos is so important, because these type of questions are so easy to do if you understand how to work with Desmos, and then you just plug in what they're asking you for, and you get the answer faster, instead of doing the algebra way of finding the x value by plugging the y value. Easy, but in order for you guys to understand it, you need to do the old-fashioned way to understand how to use Desmos. Okay, for this question, this is not Desmos, so I'm gonna make that in red. No Desmos, unfortunately. So we gotta solve it the old-fashioned way, actually solving the equation, or solving the question, instead of just plugging in the values and then getting the answer. Okay, so let's see what they're asking. The graph of the equation ax plus ky equals 6 is a line in an x and y plane, where a and k are constants. If the line contains the points -2, -6, and 0, -3, what is the value of k? So they're obviously asking for what? The value of k. We're not given a, and that is important. So you'll see why. So let's start by plugging in -2 and -6 to the first equation to solve for k. So it's in highlighting form, so I'm gonna write it in blue. So a multiplied by -2 plus k multiplied by -6. Let me draw the k a little bit more. Equals 6, and if we multiply everything, we get -2a plus, or minus, minus 6k equals 6. Well, remember I said how, like, we don't know the a value? It's a constant. They don't give us what a equals, and we can't figure out either because we don't know what k constant equals. So because we don't know a and we don't know k, we can't figure out what k equals because we don't have the a value, even though it's a constant. So we cannot use -2 and -6 to look for the answer. What we can use is 0, -3, and you'll see why. So we plug in 0, -3 to the equation of the question that's given. We would get a multiplied by 0 plus k multiplied by -3, which equals 6. Now, a multiplied by 0, it just equals 0. And then k multiplied by -3, we get -3k, which equals 6. So we can rewrite that as -3k equals 6. And what value can be multiplied by -3 to get 6? -2. So -3 multiplied by -2 equals +6, because 2 negatives equals a positive. So k equals -2. And they're asking us for value k in the equation. So the answer is A. This is not a Desmos question. You need to understand how to solve it manually, unfortunately. But it's an easy question if you understand that it gives you the y-intercept, and because there's no a constant, you cannot use -2, -6. Okay, this question is a Desmos question. So Desmos. And again, we'll use that at the end to see why. So if x and y satisfies the system of equations above, what is the value of y? So we're getting -x plus y equals -3.5 and x plus 3y equals 9.5. Now with system of equations, we can do two things. We can either add both equations, we can either make y equals or x equals, or we can multiply it for us to add it. In this case, we want to add both equations, and you'll see why. So let me rewrite it. -x plus y equals -3.5. I'm going to write the bottom one. So x plus 3y equals 9.5. So like I said, you can combine two equations. And we want that because we're looking for y. And we don't care about x. We see that x is -x in the first equation and x is +x in the second equation. So they just cancel out. And the y plus 3, the y and the positive 3y, they add up to equal 4y. And then the -3.5 plus 9.5 gives us 6. So if we just divide 4 on both sides, we are left with y equals 6 divided by 4. Or if we just simplify it, 3/2. And then 3/2 gives us a decimal, and you'll see why that's important when we use Desmos. So again, if we rewrite it in Desmos, -x plus y, which equals -3.5, and then we write the second equation, x plus 3y equals 9.5, we see that the only x value and y value that can be used to solve this question is when it equals 5 and 1.5. We don't care about the x values necessarily because they're asking for the y value. And if we do 3 divided by 2, we get 1, because 1 multiplied by 2 minus 2. Then we get 1, so then 0.0. And then we do 0.5. 0.5 multiplied by 2 equals 1, so minus 1 equals 0. So 1.5 equals 3/2, which is the y value, which is very convenient. So what's good about Desmos is that if I'm looking for, 3 divided by 2, it tells you 1.5. And if you know y equals 1.5, and you plug in Desmos, and y equals 1.5, that is the answer, because it satisfies the equation and it shows proven in Desmos. Okay, this is a non-Desmos question, unfortunately. So no Desmos. And this question might be the hardest question in this whole video because you need to understand this one concept in order to get this question correct. If you don't understand it, more than likely you won't get this question correct, unfortunately. But I want you guys to get this question correct, so I'm going to teach you it right now. The table gives the coordinates of 2 points on the line in the x and y plane. The y-intercept of the line is k minus 5b, where k and b are constants. What is the value of b? So we're given that b is the y-intercept of a line when k minus 5, which is x, which then gives you the y-intercept of b. We're given a graph. When x equals k, y equals 13. When x equals k plus 7, y equals -15. Now, what is y-intercept? How does y-intercept look like? Well, let's remember, y-intercept is when x equals 0, and then we have a value of y. And in the line, or in this question, the y-intercept is k minus 5b. And x has to equal 0 in order to be the y-intercept. What does that mean? And the only way to make k minus 5b a y-intercept is for x equals 0. And the only value of k that can make k minus 5 equal 0 is for k to equal 5, because 5 minus 5 equals 0, and then b. So then we get 0, b, and that gives you the y-intercept, or b. So k equals 5 in order to have the y-intercept of the line. So k equals 5. So what does that give us? So I'm gonna rewrite it over here. That gives us that when k equals 5, y equals 13, and then when k equals 12, y equals -15. And I'm going off from the graph if anybody's confused. So now let's use the slope formula. What is the slope formula? So it's when m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, which gives us slope. And that's what we're looking for in order to figure out the value of b of the y-intercept. So y2 is -15, so -15, and the other y value, which is y1, is 13, so minus positive 13, divided by k, which is x2, and then minus 5, which is x1, so x2 minus x1, so 12 minus 5, and that gives us -28 over 7, which equals -4, and this is slope. Now, I'm going to draw a chart in order to figure out the value of b, and you'll see why. So, let me draw it over here. Any x value and y value over here. So, let me do one of these. And the reason why I'm drawing this is really important, so pay very close attention right now. If I have k1 equals 5, if k equals 5, y equals positive 13. And we see that slope is decreasing when x is increasing. When x decreases, y decreases by -4. However, when x is decreasing and the y value is increasing, the slope is getting added by 4. It will make more sense once I show you in the graph. So when x equals 4, the y value goes up by 4, so 17. So when x equals 3, the y value is 21. When x equals 2, the y value equals 25. When x equals 1, the y value equals positive 29. And when x equals 0, y equals 33. All I did was understand that the slope is -4 when x increases by 1. So when x decreases by 1, slope is the opposite. It goes up by 4. And they're asking us, what is the value of b? Well, b is the y-intercept. And the y-intercept when x equals 0 is positive 33. And because y equals b in this question, b equals 33, or the y-intercept. So remember, it is important to understand that the y-intercept only happens when k equals 5, because the y-intercept is k minus 5, and when when k equals 5, it gives us 0b, and that is the y-intercept of the line. This is the last question for today. Thank you guys for watching.